You never know who you will meet when you join the choir and how love can blossom when you're at the dog park. But that's exactly what happened for Amy and Alyson throughout the pandemic. Today, we get a chance to spend time talking about how they created their family with the beautiful twins that they have. And we're doing it all to celebrate Pride 2025. Welcome to the Becoming Baby Ready podcast, your podcast for queer family planning. My name is Sam, and throughout this podcast, you'll hear me have conversations with professionals who work alongside people who want to start and grow their families, as well as parents of intentionally created families. Everyone I speak to identifies as being part of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community. This is your opportunity to learn answers to questions you didn't even know you had. Welcome, everyone, and happy Pride Month. We are recording early, but this will air in June 2025. I want to welcome two local parents to the show today. I have the opportunity to be speaking to people who live in my own community. It's Amy and Alyson, and I want to welcome you both. Tell us about who you are and the members of your family.
Yeah, hi. My name's Alyson. I'm Amy's wife. Like you mentioned, we're based in Burlington, Ontario, and I guess by trade, I'm an engineer. And we are so excited that in the past year, we've had big changes in our family. We welcomed our twins last May, so they're almost a year old. And we're just excited to be able to talk about the whole journey today.
And I'm Amy. I'm a teacher, and the only two members of our family Allie didn't mention are our two dogs, which are the reason that Allie and I even got to know each other better. So we have the two of us, our two dogs, and our two babies.
Excellent. Well, then let's go back to that. How did the dogs factor into this whole family creation journey?
Well, Allison and I sing in a choir that's based in Burlington, and I can shamelessly plug them here. They're called Myriad Ensemble. But that's how we actually met. And that was in 2020 during the pandemic. And I think it was just a conversation of, you have a dog, I have a dog. Like, we should go to the dog park and meet, because at that point, meeting outside was the safest way to do it. Thankfully, our dogs got along really well and played together for 2 or 3 hours that first time we went to the dog park. And that meant that we could sit and get to know each other really well. So that's sort of how it evolved into, we kept going to the dog park and we kept having more things to talk about. And then we realized we loved spending time together.
That's pretty amazing. And so I assume then choir during COVID was all online. You were just doing things over Zoom. Is that how it was?
It was kind of a mix. So I know some of the early days when I wasn't even in the choir yet, there was Zoom rehearsals and video recordings and stuff. But by the time I joined, we were rehearsing in person. We just had to stand 6 feet apart and wear masks. So one way of really getting to listen to your section is by having everybody 6 feet away from you. You realize you know your part pretty quickly.
Yeah. And in masks, I would think that would make things somewhat subdued. So you'd really all have to fully belt out to be able to hear one another properly.
Totally, yeah.
That's so cool. That's such a neat story. So did you both grow up in the Burlington area and you just happened to meet here through this, or are you transplants, as many Burlingtonians are?
I grew up in Burlington, and it's funny that now our neighborhood is the same neighborhood that I grew up in.
Oh, cool.
But
and I grew up in Hamilton.
Okay, so pretty close, pretty close. So then my guess is that with two young babies, you also have lots of support between friends and family in the neighborhood too, right?
Absolutely. We have my parents, Allison's parents, my siblings are both quite close. We have no shortage of people to call on when we need a hand with our twins.
So you met during COVID, you fell in love during COVID, and you decided to have a family beyond just your fur babies. How did that conversation come up?
I think for me anyway, I remember it happening pretty early because I knew that I was looking for something serious, and I knew that the next thing I wanted to do with a partner was start a family. And frankly, I probably would have done that even if I was single, just because I knew I wanted to be a parent. But just getting to know Alyson, a big part of that was like, is this something that you want in the future? Which it was.
Mhm.
What about you? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think it was just a pretty natural progression. Like it's the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. So of course, I want to start a family. Yeah.
And then being a household with two uteruses, how do you then come up with the decision of who's going to at least do the first kick at the can for having babies?
Yeah, I think it was actually pretty easy for us. I have a fair number of autoimmune conditions, and a lot of the medications, like you can't be on them when you're pregnant, you can't be on them when you're breastfeeding, any of those sort of things, um, because they're not studied in women to begin with, and then they're not studied in pregnant women. But
Yep.
so it was, and Amy's a little bit older, so she was always going to go first.
Mhm.
And yeah, you were very willing to be.
Well, I was willing, and it was something I always felt like it was a life experience I wanted to have.
Mhm.
And it was like even as my own sort of identity evolved as I came into who I am
Mhm.
as like a more masculine presenting person, I still knew that pregnancy was an experience I wanted, even if there were hurdles towards like not looking the way other people think I should look. I still knew I wanted to carry our children.
Yep.
And that was why some of it too, we even talked about whether I should like carry Allison's eggs, for example. But when it came to like her autoimmune conditions, it was like the easiest and most simple way is to use my eggs and to just like try first and see what happens. And of course, we still needed like fertility intervention, but not as much as maybe what some other couples have had to go through.
For sure. And so you've made the decision then that you're going to carry first and you're going to use your own eggs. That's fantastic. But as you've suggested, you might need just a hint of something else that's not quite present yet. So, how do you then decide? Do you find a known donor, an unknown donor, an anonymous bank? How did you make that decision?
We used a sperm bank, and we really wanted a redheaded donor, partially because I have red hair. Amy's dad has red hair. Amy's brother sort of has red hair. So like it just is like a family trait. So
Yep.
when you actually filter by red hair, it goes from thousands of donors to like five. So, so it actually made it really easy to make the decision because then we only had to pick from five or four. It was like there was so few number
Mhm.
of people to choose from. So
And so, did you do IVF or IUI?
So it was a little bit of a process, but long story short is that it was IUI. It all kind of started because after we got married, we initially, I remember having the conversation like, you know what, we could start trying to have a family in the fall. I feel like that would be okay. Like I feel ready for that was sort of like how I geared up. Um,
Hmm.
and so leading up to our wedding, I stopped taking the birth control pill because I was on it for like cycle regulation.
Hmm.
I learned very quickly that the reason I went on the pill 10 plus years ago, it's still the reason I had like no cycle and nothing I could track. So I thought, okay, this might be a lot harder than we're thinking, given that I don't know if I even am ovulating. So in the spring, I think it was like May, June, we started sort of investigating with our clinic as to like whether I could ovulate, basically. And then side note, we went on our honeymoon for 3 weeks, so I had to like stop some of the investigation. But then
Hmm.
upon returning, it was like August, September, and they tried me on a different medication and said, we'll just see what happens. And then 3, 4 days later, they call me and say, okay, so you're not just ovulating, you're hyper ovulating. You need to go and get inseminated like tomorrow. Um,
Oh.
so we were like, thank God we already have our sperm. Because we are like the two of us are really on top of things. So we had that like before we needed it. And it was just waiting until I should clarify too. They told us after the first investigation didn't go particularly well, they said, we're thinking we want to see 2 or 3 cycles that are predictable. And then we'll try again. Like we'll try inseminating maybe in the new year was sort of the messaging. So
Oh.
to be told in September, end of September, that actually, no, you need to go get inseminated. You're not going to have a chance like this again, was like, oh shit. So I remember calling Alyson, from, I think from the clinic parking lot, being like, they just told me I need to go tomorrow. And like, it was go time because that was the window that they had. And
it was right before Thanksgiving long weekend. So it was either we go on Friday or we miss the cycle and we do it again next month or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had,
But with so much unknown, then you're also then in a position where you're thinking we could wait until next cycle, but we don't know when next cycle will be.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they basically said, if you wait, which you can do, you won't get another chance like this. It's unlikely to get another chance where you have 4 follicles, which is a lot when you have had none before, right? So we just said, okay, we got to do it. We had to go to Mississauga because that's where the like head office is for our clinic, and that's where the sperm was being kept.
Usually they would ship it to your local clinic, but because it was less than 24 hours, like we had to truck it out to Mississauga. Yeah.
But yeah, then we went in, and when you get there is when they finally like thaw the sperm because they don't want to thaw it in case you like an emergency happens or whatever.
Yep.
Oh, but before they do that, they go, okay, it's $400. Yeah. $400. $400.
Oh, well, that's handy, isn't it? You just bring it around $400 all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of we found that in the experience, lots of sort of continued opportunities to get a bit of money from you here, a bit of money from you there. So even though the IUI itself is covered, the thawing is not covered, the storing it is not covered, the getting it from one place to another not covered.
They're just nickel and diming you.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when you say the IUI was covered, was it covered because you got the lottery from the government, or did you have coverage through your benefits through work?
I think IUI is covered under OHIP.
Because it's like it's considered like the simplest way to try.
Yeah.
So like my meds and stuff that made me ovulate, those were not covered, but the actual procedure by the doctor was covered.
Okay, there you go.
But yeah, so we got to the clinic. We got like set up in our super sterile, ugly room.
Like a broom closet.
And then one pretty concerning thing that occurred right before insemination actually was when the doctor who was performing the IUI came in, and
who we've never met before.
Never met. He didn't even introduce himself, but he looked at my name and was like, "Oh, yeah, I read this. You had a lot of follicles." And I was like, "Yeah." And he said, "Just so you know, you have a higher chance of multiples.
A higher risk.
Higher risk of multiples." And we were like, yeah, okay.
Like, whatever.
It's not going to work, right?
It's not going to work anyways. Like, we're like, it's going to take us 6 seconds. It takes everybody so many tries, right? Like,
so we're like, whatever. But he said to us, without any preamble, after he said risk of multiples, just so you know, you would have to selectively terminate if there's more than 2. Is that so? Do you still want to go ahead with your procedure? And we both kind of like, in our heads, I was like, okay, well, we did our trigger shot. We drove to Mississauga. Like, it's probably not going to work, so we'll do it, I guess. Like, I think we both had the mindset of we'll cross that bridge if and when we come to it, and we're not going to let any medical professional tell us what to do with our future children. But at that point, it was kind of, I remember being so caught off guard because it was like, I didn't think it was going to work anyway, but then on top of that, to have that conversation, I just kind of had to like brush it aside and say, okay, we're still going to go ahead. We'll see what happens. Like, this could be nothing. Like, who knows? Mm-hmm. So he said, okay. He like double, triple, quadruple checked that we had the right donor number, which we knew, and it was right. And then, yeah, it was like faster than a pap.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was. And then they just say, lay there. For 20 minutes, we asked them the whole, like, oh, are we supposed to put my feet in the air or anything? He said, no, just lay flat and wait for 20 minutes. So we were sitting there laying, and Alyson, love her, has a lot of like time blindness. So she just doesn't know how long 20 minutes is. So it's been like 7, and she's like, can we go yet? I'm like, no, it has not been 20 minutes. So I think eventually I said, put on put on music because those are each about 4 minutes. And after a couple of songs, we'll know it's been long enough and then we can go.
Right.
And then, yeah, so we went home. Actually, no, we went up north. We went up to my parents' cottage and then just had to like wait and see.
Okay, but did you stop for French fries on the way? Did you stop for the McDonald's fries on the way that everybody seems to
But
believe in?
I don't know. I don't even remember. I more so was like, oh my God, I gotta get home from Mississauga. Like, it was
Right.
that drive. It was like all the construction on like here in Ontario. Like, I was just like, this is nonsense.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
But yeah, and then we had our 2 week wait.
Yeah. 10-day wait or something. I don't know.
And then your numbers were through the roof.
Essentially, yeah, it was, I remember it being funny because when I went to the clinic, they do your blood work to check and they said, like, did you cheat? They always ask everyone, did you cheat? And I said, absolutely not. Like, that's not me. I don't need to give myself a false positive and then come in here and get disappointed. Like, you're going to tell me and then I'm going to know. That's literally what my brain did. Whereas
And
I've had, well, that too. And I've had friends who have like cheated per se. And it's not good for your mental health. So I was like, I'm going to wait. And when you tell me, I'll know, was kind of my mindset. But I told them at the time, if you could, please call me because I'll be at work and you can leave a voicemail and then my wife and I can listen to it together. And they thought, oh, what a nice idea. Like, for sure, we'll do that. And that was based on the belief that they usually called me. Any other time they had called me, it had been around 3:30 or 4 o'clock, which is when I finished school. And I sometimes can pick it up and sometimes I can't, or I'm driving home or whatever. So I thought, yeah, okay, they'll call me around that same time and it'll be fine. Does my phone not ring at 1 o'clock? So I'm like, I can't sit with this voicemail on my phone for the rest of the afternoon. So sure enough, I call Alyson and say, we have a voicemail. Can I please listen to it? And then call you after. And you said yes. So of course I had to borrow a colleague to watch my class for a minute while I went and listened to my voicemail. And then on it are the person who was helping us. We jokingly call him a cardboard man because he just was the most monotone, no inflection of voice at all. He just said, "Hi, Amy. This is so-and-so from your clinic. I would like you to know that we received your pregnancy test results and they are positive. So you can come back into the clinic in 3 days." Like, it was just so monotone. I had to twice to be like,
at the end, congratulations.
Yeah. So I had to like listen twice to be like, he said positive, right? Like, you'd expect a little something from these people who've been working with me for maybe 6 months ish, if not, around 6 months. But no, nothing. So I called Alyson after I listened, and then we both freaked out that it was positive because first try, that never happens. So I thought, okay, that the first hurdle was done. I had the positive. The second hurdle was, okay, there has to be a heartbeat. So we need to just get through these next few weeks until we get confirmation that we have a heartbeat. And I'm going to let you tell this part because you're better at telling this part.
Do you have any questions so far?
No, I guess so. No, there was nothing other than just confirming the pregnancy at that point.
Yeah.
So now your biggest concern, as with anyone who conceives, once you conceive, is will this actually result in a live birth at term?
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Perfect. So you've got the floor. Tell me.
It's been about like 4 weeks later, because you were about 6 weeks at that point.
Yeah.
We go to it's funny, like where our fertility clinic is, like the doctor like opened an ultrasound clinic. So then we just went to like his ultrasound clinic, which is good because then you can just walk right across the hall and he gets the results, like it's quick. So we're in this room that was not a closet. It's a very nice room. And lovely, lovely ultrasound tech. And I'm sitting there and like I may be in like science and technology, but like biology is not my thing. Like I don't do biology. So I'm sitting there and I can see the screen. Amy can't see the screen. And I'm looking and I'm like, I don't know what I'm looking at, right? Like it's just black. I don't know. It's just black blobs. Like I don't know. So then I'm looking and I'm like watching her. And she's taking measurements of at the very beginning. Amy goes, "Is there a heartbeat?" And she goes, "Yes, there's a heartbeat." And we're like, "Oh, blessed day." So then she's measuring, and she's measuring one of the circles, and then she starts measuring the other circle. And I'm like, is that her bladder? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm like, what is going on? So then she's like really measuring the other circle. So then I just kind of go, is there two? Like, and like they're not like supposed to, say much, but the ultrasound tech was just like, yeah, there's two. There's two heartbeats. I can't deny there's two heartbeats. Like you're looking at them, like so that
Oh
was
my gosh.
cute. Amy was like mute. She didn't say a word. I think you were in shock.
It wasn't real.
Yeah.
It wasn't real yet. But Alyson was the total opposite. She was like the highest pitched, out of control laughter that I've ever heard. Like, because initially the question was like the highest range of your voice. Is there two? Like, she was so not sure of what she was, but I could tell that she like had enough evidence that she was asking the question, right? And then for her to get the positive answer was just like, she just lost it. She was like, whoa. And I was like, no, no, no way. Like, this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen to people when they do IUI for the first try, when they haven't had a period in like a year. Like,
Yeah.
literally crazy. And then I just had to sit and process that I was going to have to carry twins.
Yeah. Oh my God, move. We should move. We should move. And then we were like, no, we don't need to move. Plot twist, we did end up moving. A year later,
Okay.
we moved.
A year later, you moved?
Yeah.
So within the first 12 weeks after babies were born?
No, so in the beginning of 2025 was when we decided that we were outgrowing our house too quickly. And we weren't going to be able to make the kind of changes we need to make our house more suitable. It was the better option was a different house. So we went on that journey in the new year this year. Yeah.
Hold on for just a moment. We'll be right back. You know about Baby Ready because you're listening to this podcast, so you know that we are all about queer family planning and helping you have the family of your dreams. But did you know that we don't abandon you once your baby arrives? We actually offer parenting coaching as well, and that's not just for the newborn phase, although we are there for that, but it's through toddlerhood and young children, tweens, and even through the teen years. When you need someone unbiased to lend an ear so that they can hear where your struggles truly are and help you come up with a path and a plan that feels truly right for you and your individual family, don't hesitate to reach out. We are always happy to be there for you. Visit us at www.babyready.info for more information. Wow. Well, and the only reason I ask about when is because it's very, very common for people having their first baby to either move in the last trimester or the first trimester post-birth. And I can't believe how many people I've met over the years that have moved during that time. And I'm thinking, you've got twins and you're moving? Like I mean, even 6 or 8 months later, that's still quite an undertaking.
To be fair, I probably would have moved a lot sooner, but I was convinced that we could make our house what we needed it to be. And frankly, I think we thought we could, but I think the way it all turned out was what should have happened, because now we are, around the corner from members of my family, and again, returning back to Burlington. Like, it's all good things that happened. That was what was the right time for us, even though we weren't maybe expecting that to happen, but
Wow. So you used a donor through a donor bank. Is it an open ID donor that when the twins are 18, if they choose to find out more information from this individual, they can?
I think so, yeah.
And we have a good amount of medical history and information that we'll share with them whenever they want to know.
Right.
But for us, it was a matter of I guess for me, I didn't want the feeling of Allison's parentage being questioned by anyone and her validity as a parent. And I felt like if other people either knew the donor or whatever, I didn't want them to say things like the dad, which has even happened, and we haven't used someone that people know. So I wanted to have it very clear from the start that we are their parents.
Yeah.
The donor is biological matter. Like
and it's true. And I have done this work for long enough. I mean, I've been a birth worker for more than a quarter century. I can't even believe that myself, but I've been in this industry for long enough, and I really feel as though it appears to me that people who have a uterus who can carry their own child feel that way more strongly, that this is our child and we will never use the word dad or father for a donor, than those who have to use a surrogate because they have to emotionally trust someone who's also carrying the child for them. So it isn't exclusive. Certainly, neither side is exclusive, but I feel as though there's a little bit more of an emotional connection to a surrogate, to the person who's willing to go down that road for you than someone who went into an office and offered their specimen and then went to the kegger that weekend or whatever happened, right? We don't know what happened, but whatever happened. Like I feel like it's very different. And so I hear the term mom or mother used more frequently with a surrogate. But I agree with you. You deserve for people to respect that there isn't a dad in the dynamic. And truth be told, gay dads deserve for people to respect that there isn't a mom in the dynamic.
absolutely.
We can do it without.
Yeah, like a family, it's not like a mom and a dad don't make a family. Like just even people who have two parents doesn't mean that they're a family. So it is, yeah, it's I find that the hardest part has been like the comparisons to long dead relatives. Like, oh wow, he looks so much like Amy's grandpa or whatever. And I'm just like, we know that he doesn't because we've seen pictures of the donor when he was a child. Like all of that stuff where I think it's like that human nature to find that similarity in those patterns.
Yeah.
And they're just
Yeah.
like uncomfortable with just like acknowledging like, yeah, our son doesn't look necessarily much like the rest of Amy's family, but also he's a white redhead, like he fits in.
Yeah.
Like it is what it is.
I know too, for me, part of what made us pick the donor we did was that we wanted in 5 and 10 and 15 years for us to be able to be together as a family out and about or whatever, and to not have people make quick snap judgments about who the real mom is. And in using a donor who looked like Alyson, we knew that we would sort of be blending the features in hopes that we would kind of look like a family without that immediate, like, well, she didn't carry them or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah.
but and I say that in that I don't want to care about what other people think, but inadvertently I know people will be thinking it. And it's funny, like even people in my life have said, I know it doesn't make any sense, but I really see Allie in your son. And it's like, you're right, it doesn't make sense. But that means that we picked the right specimen, right? It means we picked the right donor because we are a family and our children reflect their parents.
No. No. And you're right, it shouldn't matter, but at the end of the day, microaggressions are exactly that. They're microaggressions and they compound over time. So how you're feeling now with twins that are a year old is very different potentially than how you feel in 5, 10, or 15 years from now when you've had the same comments made to you for so long that you all of a sudden blow a gasket and freak out in the middle of wherever you are because enough is enough. I've heard this too many times. Obviously, there is no biologic connection to both of us. That's not physiologically possible. So pick a side or something.
Yeah. I mean, I've even had experiences, less now, I would say, but overall, a lot of people, if they don't know, will assume that Allie was the carrying parent.
Oh,
because she looks more like what they would expect a woman to look like while pregnant. Um,
okay.
Even to the point of one of our healthcare professionals, we were bringing the twins in
so
for
funny.
a vaccine appointment or something, right?
Something, yeah.
Or
I think
whatever it
must
was,
have been vaccine.
whatever it was.
Yeah.
But the doctor who who didn't know us yet, looked at Allie with like a really nice look in her eye and just said, "And how have you been feeling?"
And I was like, you know what? I'm really tired, but I didn't give birth. So yeah, that was, to
Good.
be fair though, she was like so shooketh. She was so embarrassed. And I'm kind of like, yeah, don't make that mistake ever again.
Right. And sometimes that's how people learn their lessons is going through the embarrassment of that. But you're right, there are stereotypes and absolutely, somebody needs to learn, let's ask some questions,
Yeah.
right? Doesn't hurt to ask some questions. So I see two people in front of me. How do you both identify? What are your pronouns? Like what's going on here? Give me the layout of the land.
Yeah,
Our bad. I use she, her pronouns.
I same as well. She, her.
And
Yeah.
when it comes to what they call us, I have always said I'm going to be mama until they learn mom, and then I'll most likely just be mom.
Yep.
We've tried. I've tried to be mommy. I interchange. It just
You go to say mommy, and then what comes out is like mama do, and then you realize that you've said
said mommy
yeah.
and mama. Whatever. They'll figure it out.
But we've got friends in town who have two children. Now they did theirs a couple of years apart instead of doing them all at once. They tried the more traditional route, but one's mummy and one's mama, and I have to be conscious about it all the time when I'm speaking to the kids because actually I call them by their first name. So unless I'm talking to their kids, I don't. So I think mistakes get made. Kids, at the end of the day, kids figure it out. I even think about my stepdaughter who calls I'm the stepmom, but she has two moms and she calls them both mom and just calls them both mom. She knows who she's talking to. And if the other one says something else and identifies the other parent, then that's fine and she knows who they're talking about, but they seem to all know who she's talking about. When she says mom, they're like, "Yep," or "You didn't mean me, you mean." It's just
I've heard of
it's
kids who will be like mom, and then when one answers, they say no, not you, the other one. Like, and that's
yes.
probably what's going to happen to us too.
Yeah. But I think
Yeah.
it's also kind of the same, like when we're with our, like your sister and her husband, if one of their kids yells, "Mom!" like both parents look,
Of
right?
course.
Like it's not like even though one is a dad, like one is dad, one is not like you're always
Yep.
gonna look, it just
Yeah. Is there a limb hanging off? Is there something I need to react to?
We're
exactly.
just making it more efficient for our kids.
Yeah.
There you go. See, look at what you're gifting them, right? So you've had two. It was not necessarily the route you planned to go. Are you happy with two? And this is your family's like one pregnancy, one birth done?
Yes. I
Wow, that seemed committed.
say it like that because before we were pregnant, we always wanted to have two
Two.
kids. And in my mind, that was going to be two pregnancies and two
Right.
sort of experiences. I was going to learn with the first one and then like a lot of people have said you learn with the first one and then you kind of enjoy it more with the second, right?
Right.
Instead, we got trial by fire and we got to learn and enjoy at the same time because we had two babies. And we've said this like we couldn't even imagine not having twins, especially now that we're coming up to a year and like they're doing so well. We are doing a really good job. I have to say so myself.
Yeah.
But there's that sense of like I have to kind of mourn that I'm not going to be pregnant again, and I have to mourn that like my mat leave is about to come to an end, and it's the only time I'm going to get to have it. Like it's that sense of like what I thought was going to be more than once is actually just once with like double the work, and it's been hard, but it's been like worthwhile at the same
Mhm.
time. And like I've said to a lot of people, I'm privileged in that even though I'm going back to work we're sharing the 18 months of leave. So I'm not leaving the babies and sending them to daycare right away. Like they get to be with their mom. So like I go to work, their mom is with them, and then I get to squeeze them when I get home.
Well, and let us not forget she's a teacher. So she'll
Right.
be off in July. She gets
Yeah, yeah,
2
yeah.
months.
I
2
get
months.
summer too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all part of the brain game that we play, right? And I mean, Alison, I can't speak for you, but without having the diagnosis of the autoimmune challenges that you've got, there may have been a point in your life where you envisioned that you would go down that path yourself. And so, whether we mourn because we're not going to have two pregnancies because we just did one and done, or we mourn that we don't get to do the pregnancy, but we still get to have the two babies. Like there's often a mourning process, and we have to give ourselves the grace of having that mourning period. And I feel as though the world we live in often has this approach, well, if you're mourning that, then you're not celebrating this. And both can be true. You can mourn something and still be so grateful that you have two babies. However your family came to be, both can be true. And why can't people just wrap their heads around that? I mean, I hear that from people all the time. They have a cesarean birth, and they're mourning that they didn't have a vaginal birth in some cases. And people are like, well, you got a healthy baby. Well, I know. I can,
And
what?
yeah,
Yeah.
Feel the two things at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
I started chuckling because that's literally like the primary focus of most of my therapy is that I'm allowed to feel more than one way about things, and having to give space to both of those. So for me, it's understanding that I love the twins so much, and I'm
Hmm.
going to be pregnant again. And it's not a matter of like we never wanted more than two, and I think two is reasonable for us to be able to give them the sort of life we want to give them.
Mhm.
And it's a financial choice. Like to do it again isn't cheap, and
And we could end up with twins again because
yeah,
Amy hyperovulates. So
That would be the thought that would run through my head too. So you're not just going for another pregnancy, you're going for another pair of kids, and
exactly, and it's
that's a lot.
not when I say quite common, people who have fraternal twins, they tend to hyperovulate. So when they get pregnant again, sometimes they end up with two sets of twins. So you're just like, you wanted two kids, then you wanted three, now you got four.
Oh, yeah. I've worked with a couple just here in Burlington who had a singleton and were having a second baby and had a pair, and then thought, okay, well, we're going to try it one more time. And they now have five children and two sets of twins in there.
Yeah.
There are always going to be things that don't go the way we planned, and how we choose to embrace it or wrap our heads around it is really what determines how we move forward in this life. And so I have a lot of respect for the fact that you are taking the time in therapy to process how that feels, because I don't think most of us do. I think most of us just dismiss things, especially when you've got 1-year-old twins.
yeah.
You've got enough other stuff going on. We're
I,
just going to shove all that stuff under the
for
covers
me, it's
because we don't
like
have time.
I know they need me to be at my best with
Hmm.
mental health, and I'm no good to them if I'm not
Hmm.
in a good place. So I'm
Yeah.
the biggest proponent of therapy you will meet.
No, and that's great. And that's teaching them from a young age as well that you see value in therapy, so that if it's something that they need, they won't be afraid of it.
Totally.
Right? Because there's so much stigma attached to the word therapy, even though if I go for massage, that's massage therapy. If I, hurt my leg, I go to physiotherapy. It's all therapy. It's just some of the mental kind, which is our biggest muscle that we need to be respectful of. This may sound slightly disjointed because they took a quick pause to put something on the television for the twins to watch while we finished our conversation.
We always have jokingly said that we maybe would have been more crunchy momish with screen time had we not had twins, but
Yeah.
sorry.
Survival of the fittest.
Sometimes you just need them You need one of them to be distracted enough that you can take care of the other one and vice versa.
Yeah. Or go to the bathroom. You just need to have time to go to the bathroom.
Coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've started having hot coffee again. That's really nice.
Ah, you don't know how much you miss little things like that until you reintroduce them back into your life and they make you so happy,
Yep.
right? And will your children grow up in a world of music since the two of you were brought together by song?
Yeah, we actually have been taking them to music classes, right from when they were like, what, 4 months?
Yeah, as soon as they were allowed.
So yeah, it's like an international like program. It's called Music Together. If
Mm,
you've heard, we've been doing it in Hamilton, but we'll probably switch to Burlington in the fall. Um, it has been like incredible. Like for us, it's like I always think of it, you know, when you have a dog and you take the dog to training, and they always say like we're training the owner more than we're training the dog. That's kind of what the music classes are. It's like we're training the parent more than they're training the baby because they're babies.
sure.
They know nothing. But I mean, now they love it because they're almost a year and they've been doing it for a long time, but we get to learn all these things about how, I always find the most fascinating thing was like babies are born with the ability to know like when a song is over. They can sense like when the chords have like resolved. Um,
Mm,
and the what's the other one?
The
The
fifths.
fifths. Yeah, they're like natural musical ability when they're born is like they know like the
Do and the
fifths.
so.
So the do so. So sometimes
yeah.
they sing like do like a the C note to the baby or whatever, they'll come back at you with the fifth.
That's cool.
Fascinating. It is really cool.
One of my
Um,
favorite things about it, and our instructor is particularly good at this too, is you learn certain songs with each session that you're in, and she'll often sing the songs with us, but then she stops before the last note, and you just sort of wait, and the babies all start chiming in that they need to finish, and it initially it wasn't happening very
it was
much.
like dead silent. It was
But
really
like
funny.
now, especially having had them in it this long, now you hear like little chirps all over the room of like when the song should be ending, you hear the babies all making it end. And that to me was like, okay, so the research is true.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you hear so much more is being talked about these days about music therapy and things like that, and just all of the benefits of music and our psychological well-being, on our physical well-being. So to know that they will have that really from infancy is just such a powerful gift you're giving them, right?
Even I would say even before infancy, like in utero, I was still singing.
Sure.
We were still singing in our choir and it's
She, Amy performed, we performed at our spring concert. Was it like May 5th?
yep,
And the twins were born May 13th.
yep.
Wow.
And that's actually funny because our artistic director pulled out a piece that we had sang last year, and had us singing it again this year. And I turned to my altos behind me and I was like, I can't believe how much easier it is to sing this with my full lung capacity. Like, I didn't realize how much space they were taking and how little air I had until pulling out that same piece. I was like, oh, I don't actually have to breathe here. Like, whereas last year I had a marking because I knew I had to breathe. Now it's like, oh, I have
Mhm.
more air. I have more air than I thought. Um, but
That's right.
so it's so funny the things you don't realize, like while you're pregnant, how different it feels. Um, but
Mhm.
yeah, I did our last concert last year. There was a stool that I was allowed to sit on if I needed to sit. But yeah, I made it through, and then I thought I would have about a month where I could just get ready for the babies to come, and of course they came a week later. So
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. That there you are, lesson learned. Your children are going to constantly tell you that actually they make the decisions, right? I'm going to let you get back to your day, but before I do, please tell me what are your very, very favorite parts of parenting these two sweet children?
I think for me, it's the unconditional joy that they have. So, like, I could be feeling awful or having a bad day or like whatever, and then you go into their bedroom after a nap, and it's like instant smiles, or, they're both starting to get really tactile, so they really want to be held or picked up. for better or for worse. I don't know. They're just I just look at these kids and they're just like blank slates of joy, I guess. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
For me, it's the evolution of watching them become who they are. So even already they have personalities. Even when they first came home from the NICU, they had personalities that we knew these things about twin A and these things about twin B. But now it's that sense of knowing. I remember the first time I could tell apart who was crying. And it was that sense of like getting to know them as individuals and trying to be true to who they want to become and making sure that we don't. I think for me, it feels like a privilege to not stifle it, to ensure that they know they can always be who they want to be, and seeing sort of who they already are. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. And it is a unique opportunity that you got to see and make that determination because you had twins, whereas so many people have singletons, and so they kind of get used to this child and that child grows up, and then you have the next child and that child grows up. So you get used to them one at a time. I love that you've actually been able to pinpoint that reality of having two like that and learning them differently because they're different people.
I think that for us was a big advantage of having had fraternal twins is that pretty automatically people know they're different because there's a boy and a girl and they have different color hair, right? Like
Yeah.
part. Whereas when you have identical twins, I know it can be troublesome, especially for like family that's maybe not the parents, to then differentiate between like the habits or the patterns. But for us, it's pretty quick to know like which is which and what they like and what they need even, right? They need like different kinds of soothing. Singing works for both of them though.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah.
That's so amazing. I want to just thank you both for taking the time to chat today. And this is airing in June. I'm going to just say Happy Pride.
Happy Pride. Thank you so much.
As a queer individual with colonial lineage, I want to first acknowledge the land upon which I live and work. Being from what is now known as Burlington, Ontario, I recognize the original ancestry of these lands as they span from Lake Ontario to the Niagara Escarpment and beyond. These lands are steeped in Indigenous history that benefits my community every day. The territory is mutually covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy, the Ojibwe, and other allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I stand is part of the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit. The land dictates everything about our ways of being. Particularly, the land teaches us about fluidity. Concepts of the binary system and heteropatriarchy were imposed by the colonials who were, at the same time, removing children from their homes, families, and all that was familiar to them. These same children were divided by the only two prescribed binaries recognized by the settlers, and they were forced to conform to a performative, gendered falsehood. The land doesn't operate under binary thinking. It is diverse, complex, and unpredictable at times. Rather, the land holds us and all of our remarkable paths and identities. Every organism and spirit has a purpose. It is from this understanding that I strive to live and grow. Thank you for joining me today on the Becoming Baby Ready podcast. If you have a story that you'd like to share, or you know someone who might, if you're a professional who works in the capacity of helping people start and grow their families, and you identify as being a part of the 2S LGBTQIA plus community yourself, then please don't hesitate to reach out. We always have room for more stories to share, and there's always more learning to do.